So good afternoon and welcome to Tempo's program meeting for August. So it was so delightful. I got to see so many of our Tempo members and our emerging women leaders and so many faces that I hadn't seen in person this morning at a Women in Business Biz Times event that Tempo sponsored. So it was really great to see a lot of people and getting back to a little bit of normalcy for all of us. So I'll share shortly about Tempo's future return to in-person meetings as well. But thank you for now. For today's session, we are really thrilled. We have a wonderful program planned for you, opportunities and challenges facing high growth companies in southeastern Wisconsin. One of the greatest values and benefits for our Tempo membership is our delivering on high caliber programming. We hear it from our members all the time. So thank you, a special shout out to our tremendous programming committee for continuing to provide us really impactful, valuable, and incredible content. And today's session definitely meets all of that criteria. So for those of you who are new to Tempo, maybe you're a new member of our Emerging Women Leaders group, or you are one of our many guests who are joining us for the first time today, welcome. This is our program meeting. We are typically hold our program meetings throughout the year on the third Thursday of 8 months out of the year. When we do hold these virtually, it's noon until 1 p.m. like today's session. But as I mentioned earlier, we are hopeful that we will be returning to in-person and getting back to a sense of normalcy for our organization on September 16th, which is next month on the third Thursday of the month at the Italian Community Center. We will be hosting our September program meeting. We're switching it from, it's a little bit of a longer session, so 11 until noon for a networking opportunity. Many of our members will be seeing each other for the first time. Many of our new members will be joining us for the first in-person event. So, and then from 12:30 until 1:30 will be our programming session. If you are still unable or not comfortable attending in person, or if you just can't fit it into your schedule to join us in person, next month we are still offering a virtual option, and we will do so for all of our programming moving forward. So we will have that live stream capability. So watch your Monday message or go to Tempo's website to learn more about that session. Showcasing our community leaders is part of our programming sessions. Our programming would not be possible with the generous support of Reinhardt, who has been an incredible partner to us throughout the years, and specifically this year have focused on our Tempo programming. So I'm going to turn it over now to Rebekah Green, who is an attorney at Reinhardt, but also a member of our Emerging Women Leaders group, to say a few words about Reinhardt's commitment.
Thanks, Jen. As you said, I'm an attorney here at Reinhardt Berner Van Duren, and I'm also the chair of our Women Attorneys Affinity Group. So this type of organization, all the work that Tempo does is near and dear to my heart, as we work with our women here to attract and retain and advance our women talent. But we at Reinhardt, I want to welcome you to today's program. It's really exciting. It sounds like, as usual, Tempo has chosen yet another very timely topic. It looks like there's a great panel for you today, and I'm excited to hear from them. We have been proud to sponsor Tempo for many years in all different types of activities that Tempo does. And this year to become the programming sponsor has just been a really great thing. And I'm very excited that we're doing this year. We're also proud to have been a sponsor of Tempo for many years. All the good work that Tempo does in southeastern Wisconsin for professional women. We're just very proud to partner with you. And I hope today you learn a lot from these panelists. I'm excited. I hope you are too. And I'll turn it back over to Jen.
Thank you so much, Rebekah, and thank you, Reinhardt, for your continued partnership and your sponsorship, specifically this year of our programming. So let's get started. As I mentioned earlier, this is really the brainchild of our fabulous programming committee. And one of those serving on that committee is Penelope Smiley. She is a member of our Tempo programming committee, but also today serving as moderator. She is, during her day job, or for her day job, she is the director of brand strategy at Kohl's. And I'm really excited to turn it over now to Penelope. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Jen. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll go ahead and ask our panelists to turn their videos on. And while they're doing that, just give a little introduction for everybody that's joining us today. So today's conversation is going to be really exciting. We're going to be discussing one of the opportunities and challenges that really present themselves in a rapidly growing industry. And specifically, that industry today is manufacturing. And so to give you a little bit of background on manufacturing itself, if you didn't know, Wisconsin is one of the top 10 states in the country for manufacturing as an industry. We have over 7,000 manufacturing firms in the state today. Manufacturing as an industry employs nearly 500,000 people in Wisconsin, which is about 16% of the total workforce. And it also accounts for nearly 20% of our total output in Wisconsin of about $63 billion. So no small industry at all. And it's amazing to see the growth that they're having and to also have the powerhouse companies represented today. So to give a little introduction on who we have with us today, I will start with Lisa Brown, who is the Senior Director of Corporate Development at Generac. So she has been with Generac for 19 years. She's a native of Wisconsin and currently resides in Mukwonago, where she lives with her husband and 2 children. So she started with Generac shortly after completing her undergraduate degree at UW-Whitewater. And she was part of the team that actually founded the corporate development department at Generac and has led them through the first acquisition they had in 2011. And has since then completed a total of 16 acquisitions over the past 10 years. So no small feat there, and super excited to hear about that. We also have Babatu Short, the Vice President of Human Resources at Haribo of America. So Babatu is also a native of Wisconsin and currently resides in Franklin with his wife, Michelle, and their 2 daughters, Ella and Eva. He started with Haribo in January of 2020, so a little bit newer to the company, but he has a great track record of 20 plus years of human resources experiencing that span across large multi-industrial companies and consumer packaged goods. And then we have Katie Gavin. She is the Senior Vice President of Human Resources at Milwaukee Tool. She also is a native of Wisconsin and currently resides in her hometown of Fond du Lac. She lives with her husband and 2 children there, and she started with Milwaukee Tool in 2005. She took over the HR department and function in 2008 and has over 20 years of HR leadership in total. So pretty impressive backgrounds and really excited to let them share more of their experience and knowledge with all of you. So as we move forward, and after that short introduction of what I was able to provide, I'm going to let each of them jump in and share a little bit more about their experiences. So I'm going to start with Katie, and I'll ask you to kind of share with the audience today a little bit more about your role and the company that you're in, and just give us a quick overview if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, not a problem. So my responsibilities is for leadership of the HR function at Milwaukee Tool. So our goal really is to attract, develop, engage, and retain a really high performing workforce for Milwaukee Tool. If you're not familiar with Milwaukee Tool, we're really the market leader in cordless power tools, power tool accessories, hand tools, and storage. Our company has experienced significant growth over the past few years, actually probably the past decade. And really that has really translated into substantial employment growth. And so our team has really been very, very busy. We've tripled our US employment over the past 10 years, and we're continuing to grow and expand. So overall, Milwaukee Tool is really growing in southeastern Wisconsin, and we're really the support function to make sure that we have the right people to get that growth.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing. How about Lisa? We'll hand it over to you now.
Good, thank you. Thanks for including me and inviting me. This is very exciting. So those of you that aren't familiar with Generac, we too are a market leader in a different space, residential home standby generator products. We do have 5 manufacturing locations here in Wisconsin, and then a global footprint. We've also seen tremendous growth as well. We've grown 15% organically over the past 10 years, every year. And as we mentioned earlier, we've done 16 acquisitions, which is what my team does. So corporate development, I think, is a little bit different at every company. Here at Generac, our focus is to accelerate our corporate global strategy through inorganic investments, acquiring companies either to put us in new regions, new product space, or to simply acquire some specialized talent in different areas of the globe.
Great. And Babatu, how about you?
All right, thank you, Penelope. And as Penelope said, my name is Babatu Short. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources with Haribo of America. So you might note, if the camera's good, you can see I'm wearing a little lapel pin. That's our Haribo Gold Bear. And so we are another market leader. So great group of panelists in gummy, candy, and confectionery treats. So you may not know, but Haribo is a 100-year-old German family-run company. And while we don't manufacture in the US yet, if you've driven down the 94 corridor in Kenosha near Aurora, you would see a massive structure going up. And that's going to be our first manufacturing facility in the US. So we're really, really excited about that. Why is that important to us? It gives us access to, speed in terms of route to market to our customers, product freshness, and it really helps us to continue to expand our growth. So we're very, very excited about that. And for people who know the brand, they love the brand. So that makes it fun to get to work for a company like that, which is really neat. The other piece I would just quickly comment on is the fact that we're in Pleasant Prairie and why we selected that location. Penelope set the stage nicely with some of the metrics related to manufacturing in Wisconsin. And there's really a great ecosystem for manufacturing in Wisconsin, specifically Pleasant Prairie. Our owner, Mr. Riegel, his name is Hans Riegel, he came and he was in a conference room and the team was prepared with a massive PowerPoint deck. And he said, put that aside, let's get in the car. Take me to a daycare, take me to a school, take me to the grocery store, take me to a restaurant. He wanted to actually go where the people were and get a sense and a feel for the community. And that's really a part of our culture. And that was an important part of the selection process, a community that had shared values of hard work ethic, diverse talent, a warm welcome. So that it really is interesting, but feel was absolutely a part of it. Of course, there were the other pieces that you might imagine in terms of the financial implications and the ability to have a favorable situation that way. But also location to the Milwaukee market and the Chicago market were all reasons. So we're really excited to be here. And I'm going to leave it to my fellow Wisconsinites to talk about active manufacturing. I'll talk about the future of our manufacturing and growth in this conversation. Thank you, Penelope.
That's great. And as a branding expert, I love the representation you have through accessories today. So thanks for showing that. All right, so let's jump into the conversation a little bit further. So to start the discussion today, each of you have brought forward some amazing numbers about the growth that each of your companies are experiencing. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's actually driving that unique demand behind each of your companies and how it's really fueling your company forward? So Lisa, maybe we'll start with you on this one.
Sure, yeah, thank you very much. So I would suspect most of you are calling in from home right now and have been for 18 months or so. Most of your children probably went to school at home, at least for some period of time over the last 18 months. We have coined that term kind of home as a sanctuary. Everyone is moving towards doing more from home, and all of it requires power. If you didn't have power right now, you wouldn't be on this call. Your kids wouldn't be able to go to school. You wouldn't be able to charge your electric vehicle as we look forward to the future. So power is important, and power in the home has become significantly more important over the past 18 months or so. So that home as a sanctuary trend has really grown and pushed some of the growth that we've seen recently in our markets. And then the other piece of it is, your aging parents. People are less likely to move people into care facilities, especially given the current state of the pandemic. So people are staying home longer in their homes, and that requires, again, another need for power in the home with different medical equipment, or no one wants to think about, their mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, home alone without power, electricity. So that's really helped drive some of what we're seeing from a growth perspective here.
That's amazing. Yeah, the industry, I can imagine, is just booming, and hadn't even thought about some of those things. So let's jump over to Babatu and talk about what's really fueling Haribo right now.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. You know, it's really a couple of things. And, you know, Lisa alluded to the environment currently and the need for power and more people in their homes. You know, we're in the midst of really significant and rapid change around the world. And when people get in a high change environment, they start to look for things that are familiar. They start to look for things that create moments of joy. And, you know, confectionery treats are certainly one of those things. They're comfortable things. You go to the childhood things that made you happy and create comfort. And so people familiar with the brand are reaching back to the brand, or people are discovering the brand for the first time. The second piece, I think, is really about the category itself. And, you know, if you go back 10 years, 15 years ago, gummy wasn't a huge category. There were a few market players, there were a few gummy treats. Now everyone is in this business, and there are new entrants every day because the category is growing at 30%. We're happy to lead the market in that category and continue to grow our share, but that's really significant growth, and not the same kind of growth, for example, in chocolate. In fact, chocolate lost share for, you know, a couple of years and now has started to reemerge, and gum is going in completely a different direction. So I think there are really two dimensions that are really driving it. And then in terms of our opportunities, you know, we've really focused on brand awareness. And, you know, you may have seen the Child Voices ad campaigns, and it's really great. Anytime somebody knows I work for the company, it's common that someone will reference it, or even no matter what their age, whether they're 70 or 7, they'll start channeling their child voice, which is really kind of funny and entertaining. But those are pieces that are ultimately creating, I think, demand for the category and are helping us to grow. The other piece I would say is, you know, again, we've been growing quite significantly for a long time. But when we entered Rosemont, Illinois, about 6 years ago, and took on a new leadership team, the growth completely accelerated for the company. And I mean, at the time, I think we had 3 or 4 SKUs in a Walmart, for example. Now we have over 40. So it gives you a sense for how the category is being sought after, and then our ability to, you know, more effectively get in front of people and give them the opportunity for that choice.
Great. All right, Katie, do you want to round us out with some of the interesting things that are fueling your industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So power tools, I mean, one of the biggest growth drivers for us is the move from corded or gas power to cordless power. So it's really about how do we provide a high quality construction grade tool for our users. And we really focus a lot on our core user groups, and we really focus on the construction trades. And so all of our products are the kind of like the Cadillac of the power tools. And it's really kind of a brand that people aspire to buy at the home centers. And it's really been driven by our cordless battery technology and the technology that our teams have really developed that's brand new to the world and to the space for power tools. And really, how have we added to that in terms of we've expanded our product line into more accessories to make the users even more productive with the accessories that attach to their power tools. And then we've expanded into hand tools and levels and power tool storage. And now we're really going big into the PPE space. And it's really about how do we always look at our users and what do they need and how do we continue to meet their needs, either through a brand new to the world product or through improving something that already exists. And so we're always looking to them, and we're a very outward focused organization, concentrating on the people that use our tools and how do we continue to add productivity solutions for them. And then I have to say, you know, we wouldn't be successful if it wasn't for our incredibly talented team of engineers and marketers and their ability to really reinvent how this is done and how work is done and really advance our battery technology to be able to take over and create tools that are traditionally gas powered, right? Traditionally, you know, something that has always been gas powered is now your ability to do it cordless and do it with safer, quieter, more environmentally friendly products. And it's really helped advance us in the space and really helped us really make sure, you know, take this market share and grow the organization.
Great. So we'll switch topics slightly here, but certainly related to the rapid growth that you're all experiencing. And not surprisingly, because this is a widespread topic, I think right now is around the talent crisis that is existing with a shortage of employees and the changing workforce and how people prefer to or are willing to go to work. So as you think about that and how you're balancing the talent side with the rapid growth, can you help paint the picture a little bit for how this talent crisis is really impacting or not impacting your personal organizations? So with that, Babatu, we'll start with you on this one.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks for the question. This is as a group, and the reality is this: the need to have talent, skilled talent, experienced talent, technical talent, talent that's passionate about manufacturing is a need that we commonly share. And while we may not need the exact same talent, we experience very similar things. And the thing that we laughed about a little bit was, it's like, okay, well, we have growth problems. These are good problems to have. A contracting business is a tough place to be. So, I think to sort of frame it in that context, our opportunity, and I know Katie's going to talk about this, so I won't go too deeply into it, is to really establish good partnerships and relationships and to build the pipeline of talent as one strategy, and that's a local strategy. There's another strategy to import talent and show how we're an appealing region and we're an appealing place to be, and we're wonderful employers with great cultures. And that's another piece that we're able to do and that we spend time focusing on. And then sort of a recent development, or I would describe it as an intensified perhaps need, is around the ability to have remote working. And what does that actually look like in our full employment ecosystem? In our business, we have technology called moguls, but it would be the equivalent of somebody's press somewhere. It's a heavy piece of equipment. You can't take it home. It's not going to sit in your bedroom, right? So there are certain roles that aren't conducive to remote working, but what does that mean for our organizations more broadly? We hear about that on a regular basis when we talk to candidates. And so it's important to be somewhat progressive. And the other piece is it's important to be clear about kind of who you are and what works from a success perspective within your culture. So I'll do the framing there. I'm going to turn it over to Katie, if that's okay. Penelope, can I play facilitator for a moment? Okay.
Thanks, Batu.
Sure.
And I 100% agree with him in terms of you got to establish those relationships. And I think it varies based on what type of candidates you're looking for. We have our new product development center is based here in Southeastern Wisconsin. So many of our positions are college degree required, technical skills, engineering, marketing, all of these roles that are critical to our business. And we've struggled, and I'm sure a lot of organizations have struggled to be able to fill that pipeline within the amount of people we need. And we have done a lot of recruiting, especially over the past year, of looking outside of our market and bringing people in. Our relocations are through the roof this year in terms of the number of people we're bringing in. We have also expanded our college footprint in terms of where we recruit to make sure that we are looking at campuses not just in this marketplace, not in just Wisconsin and Michigan, where we've expanded it quite a bit to the East Coast and more of the central states. So how do we continue to look outside? How do we continue to reinvent the way we're looking at recruiting, partnering with diversity organizations to try to bring in more diverse talent is really a key initiative for us also, is to try to improve our pipeline of different people that can help us continue to innovate, because we all recognize that diversity helps innovation. And so it's a big challenge. And then when it comes to that manufacturing shop floor, we have to continue to offer a competitive wage, competitive benefits package, because there's a lot of competition out there right now, and make sure that our supervisors are treating people decent, that they actually want to come to work every day. And continue to produce and continue to be a part of the Milwaukee Tool family. So it's really essential that you have a full range of ways to attract and retain talent in order to compete in this very tough talent crisis.
Makes a lot of sense. Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit about the talent crisis that might be impacting your organization?
Sure, sure. And so, Katie's org and my org are in very similar spaces. We compete, for the same talent, do all of the same things as we worked, together to prepare for this panel. It was everything Katie said and everything I said is, yep, we're doing that, we're doing that. So some of the specific things to Generac is, because we're growing, we did actually just acquire the American Family Insurance building off of 94 in Pewaukee. I think we announced that last week, just for more space, for office space, to add to as we continue to try. The relocation, thing is certainly near and dear to us. And not only that, we're actually relocating lower level positions than we would have before. Before we would only go after, maybe director and above from a relocation standpoint. Now we're relocating, manager level employees as well to try to bring in talent. And then the other thing that we've done is gotten really creative with scheduling for shifts in the manufacturing plant. I think we're up to 16 different options, different colors of shifts where you can do 4 10-hour days, you can do only weekends, you can do no weekends ever, always have overtime options, never have overtime options, really any way we could slice and dice different options to get creative with the manufacturing employee base. It's been helpful. It's hard to manage. I think from an HR perspective, it's a little bit outside of what I do, but I certainly hear some of the pain points. And then specific to my role, I think the most creative thing we've done is part of our strategy now with acquiring companies is looking at the talent profile and how does that help accelerate our ability, to grow. So we did an acquisition a few months ago in the United Kingdom called Deep Sea Electronics. And one of the forefront strategy pieces for that was they had, over 20 engineers that understood a very important piece to our engineering business, which is the control system. And that really was one of the deciding factors on why we acquired that company, is from a talent play.
That's really interesting, the idea of acquisition of talent like that. I'm going to stick with you, Lisa, for this next question to start with, and it's along the similar lines of talent. Sure. So interesting and fascinating different approaches that you're all taking for the immediate need of talent right now, right? But we know there's a future pipeline that we also need to build, and each of your industries certainly has a role in your innovative thought powers that each of your organizations hold, has some really interesting things you're doing to build the pipeline and continue to ensure you have that go forward. Can you talk about some of the really cool things Generac is doing?
Sure. So one of the great things about our culture here is our founder was very big on education and really engineering education. Our founder was an engineer and was really seeing early on that we just weren't, graduating the number of engineers that were going to be needed to continue to progress. So there is something called Project Lead the Way, which is really an investment in middle school talent of making sure that there is STEM and now STEAM education available that drives towards this, engineering focus, and making sure that, kids are exposed to even the understanding that engineering is a career, and then the multiple different ways that you can go into engineering. I'll confess, I knew of an engineer, and what they did basically, but until I worked at a company where we have 57 different types of engineers and all of the different things that they do, if kids aren't exposed to that, or they don't have a family that's in engineering, I think it's hard for them to understand. So that Project Lead the Way is really helpful. And then we have something called GPS Partners in Education, where we have high school students actually in classroom in our buildings for half a day, and then they work on the plant floor paid half a day. And at the end of the program, they actually earn a high school diploma, not a GED, but an actual program. Or an actual diploma, and we have a 97% graduation rate for kids that likely would not have graduated high school through traditional means. And a lot of those kids then stay on and become some of our skilled laborers through our apprentice programs that we have here at Generac.
It's really cool. Babatu, how about any interesting future pipeline actions that you guys are taking?
Right, yeah, my intention will be to not repeat. I will simply say that we're looking at our emerging pipeline, and we have partnerships with four-year institutions, two-year technical institutions. We're into the high schools, in fact, in a prime program, building a curriculum that we're helping to design, support, that will produce manufacturing talent in the region. So those are a host of things that we're doing. And I would say one of the kind of recent creative things is we've looked at a couple of our community partners. So the Boys and Girls Club and then Parkside. And they're relatively close to one another, but it's pretty rare that anybody at the Boys and Girls Club would have access to what's happening at Parkside. And so we have something called the Haribo Invitational. It's a basketball game. And we're working with those two partners to connect them to make sure that kids from the Boys and Girls Club can come to that game. Again, this is long range sort of talent development and creating a kind of healthy ecosystem about what does the world of opportunities look like, where they'll get to, have some fun, interact with some people, eat some food, meet some players, that kind of thing, but experience college at an early point where they normally wouldn't. So those are a couple of things that I just think are kind of unique as we think about the schools are the traditional ones, and then it's how do you create other value and get people connected so they start seeing the possibilities is an important piece.
That's great. Katie, do you want to talk about some of the things at Milwaukee Tool?
Sure. We have a very robust internship program. So we hire hundreds, I think we had 150 interns this summer. So we really rely on that as really a big part of our talent pipeline for bringing people into the door. And we're also starting to really look at, when we look at community service and community impact and how do we give back to our communities, education is a big core, one of our core foundational missions within that realm. And we've partnered with the launch program with the Brookfield schools. The Brookfield and Wauwatosa school districts have a great program within their high school system. And we've also created a partnership with the Milwaukee Academy of Science to be able to attract and really help develop more of our inner city youth. And we're helping sponsor a STEM lab there to really try to really do more promotion of STEM education and the opportunities that there are in that space for students to try to get more people interested in going into more engineering, math driven fields outside of high school. And it really also gives our employees a great opportunity to give back to the community and to really share their love of science. So for us, it's all, it's really a great way for us to do both, right? To really create a great opportunity for our people, but then also to really help uplift the community and really help try to, build that future talent pool even earlier than what we typically see. So those are really kind of some of the things we're really working on. And then, we're continuing to look at how do we do more apprenticeship programs and continue to bring in students direct from high school into some of our lab spaces and our prototyping labs into our manufacturing in Wisconsin too. So there's a lot of different, we're willing to try pretty much anything just to be able to continue to build that pipeline for the future.
Yeah, I love what you said, Katie, about being in the community as part of filling your future pipeline. I mean, I heard it from Lisa and heard from Babatu also, like everything you're doing does have a community base and it just builds your brand within the community. It shows your shared values and it's just so impactful. So I love the double impact, if not triple impact that you're having through all of that work. Similar lines of kind of as we talk about challenges, but sometimes opportunities that also surface themselves when you're in a rapid growth industry. Can you talk to me a little bit about what some of those unique challenges might be and how you're addressing them beyond the talent kind of crisis that we just spent a bit of time on? So what other challenges have you really seen to start surfacing or opportunities that perhaps you didn't expect as the growth really started to take off? So Katie, maybe we'll start with you again on that.
I think one of our biggest challenges is how do we infuse culture with a rapidly growing organization and we're all remote. That was really probably our biggest challenge last year in terms of we are still in this rapid growth mode. But we have to be able to bring these individuals into our organization, get them up to speed on who we are and how we get work done. And we don't have the ability to be in the building, right? So when you're in our building, there's a vibe, right? There's a sense of energy. Our culture is evident in everyone you talk to. And it's hard when you're all remote. So how do, that was a really big challenge for us, and it continues to be a challenge, but it was also a really big opportunity because we can now expand our workforce to remote workers. We can expand it to people having more flexibility in their work life. We're looking at, how do we establish satellite offices? Because we really expanded our purview from everybody has to be in the office 5 days a week, 40 hours, the same 40 hours, to now, well, we have a lot more flexibility and we know it works. We know people are engaged. We know they are actively working at home. How do we really take advantage of that to be able to fill some of our needs?
Great. Babatu, I'm going to pass it over to you to talk about some of the unique challenges or opportunities.
Great. Well, I'm going to build on what Katie said. And I would say not only really building and continuing to nurture and cultivate our culture in a remote working environment, but actually as we just rapidly scale. So, we're going to go from 100 and plus associates to close to 500 in the next, year and a half, right? So that time frame and that rapid growth, what's on our mind is our culture is vibrant. When you walk in the office, you feel it. There's bright, vibrant colors all over. There's selfie stations with gold bears. It really is something special. But beyond that, that's sort of on the surface of how you get maybe the feel. We're a very collaborative and team-based culture. There's these wonderful stories. We talked about education before. Something most people don't know about our organization is half of the organization is actually a foundation. And in Europe, and the foundation in Germany is all focused around education and heavily involved in STEM. And so community is absolutely at our core and a part of what we do. And, how do we share those stories and connect with people and then do it at scale? Today, right? I talk to literally every single person that comes in our doors, every person. When we get bigger, how do we cultivate that and continue to do that, right? I think it's going to have to shift in terms of how we build that. But what we center ourselves around are our values. And I talked about, having fun when you go in the office and when you're maybe in your home office, but it's childlike happiness is one of our values. And our other values that we're anchored around are quality and trust and pragmatism, independence, focus. And those are our anchors. And we start with those. The second piece in terms of actually how have we addressed perpetuating the culture, right, and cultivating it, because the way I describe it is we build it person to person, hand to hand. Now it's like screen to screen. Right. And what's important, think about the traditions that you have that you can hang on to and still show people. So while we're in a remote environment, if somebody's going to have a child, we still have that person and their family, and we do remote baby showers. Seems like a trivial thing, but that's a part of who we are. It's a part of what we do. And all of our associates get on for it. Our interns, they have a management team presentation. Sure, it's not different from what others do, but then everybody in the company pops onto a call afterwards. They don't know about it, just like say goodbye, right? There's all these little traditions. When we have great news, we ring a bell, a physical bell. And at first people had bells on their phones, and now somebody might have it in the screen. And, one of these bell ringing moments was we closed on the land in Pleasant Prairie to build not only this phase of our manufacturing, but the next phase. So we just paid attention to what can we continue, even though we're in a new and a different environment. And I think that's an important piece. Another piece is we develop our leaders around values-based leadership. So there isn't one type of leader and you have to be like this, because leaders vary in their styles, their approaches, and that actually brings more effectiveness organizationally. But having them anchored and centered around the values and how that brings about their leadership is important. And so those are just a few of the pieces that I would talk about that have, again, been sort of challenges and how we address those challenges from a culture perspective. The other piece is, we learned how to do new things. We learned how to innovate and onboard new associates, remotely. They never saw the office, right? They got their computer, their equipment. We hadn't done that before. So for us, that was building new muscle. But it was a good experience and it was a lot of fun. And then we have some general practices that I know Katie has and Lisa has within your organizations around good onboarding protocols. You have a pretty good program. You're clear about what people need to do. when they need to do it, who they need to meet with, why they need to meet with them. All of those things get people indoctrinated and ultimately help them with speed to productivity, which drives engagement. So that would be my contribution to the question, but it squarely sits at the heart of culture.
Amazing. Lisa, I think you might have a slightly different opportunity that has surfaced coming out of all of this. Could you talk to us about that?
Sure. Yeah. So of course, again, culture and trying to keep that, first and foremost has been a challenge, but presented opportunities. I think one of the things that it's really done is forced us to be a little more flexible. And I know Katie and I have talked about this a little bit in the panel. Being a manufacturing environment, you're usually a little more stringent and everything's kind of all in neat, tidy little boxes. And so although we were a collaborative environment, collaboration was like standing by someone's desk and talking to them. So it forced us even just to get the right tools in place, which has really helped us collaborate more globally. And then that leads us to this whole, M&A concept, right? All of these acquisitions. For any of you that have had to go through a painful process of trying to buy a house in the last year or so, that's the same thing as trying to buy a company right now. There's very few things for sale, and they're all very, very expensive, and they're very competitive. So as we try to solve some of our, growth challenges through acquisition, it's difficult, right? It's expensive, and there isn't a lot out there. So it's caused us to kind of relook at our strategy of how do we go about acquiring companies. We've done it on relationships in the past, and we continue to strengthen that process and really just get directly to leaders of companies and start having conversations about what great partnership we are, what a great home we are, and really sell people more on the opportunity to be part of what we're doing and growing versus so much about, a financial transaction, and really selling this opportunity of growing and working together as we become, a connected company versus this much more like we're going to acquire you and you're going to do, what we do.
Makes sense. All right. So let's see. We're going to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit on the personal side, right? So when our companies are growing pretty quick and we're in leadership roles, particularly, like that can put some challenges on us personally or opportunities on us personally and professionally. I would love to just have the personal side of how the growth in your companies or the changes over the last 18 months have really led to anything that you've really identified as great opportunities and how you might have pivoted through them personally. So Lisa, since you're still on the screen for me, I'll start with you.
Yeah, that's great. I feel incredibly grateful to have worked for a company that's grown so much. And I know, we're focused on this kind of last 18 months, but, we've really grown a ton in the past 10 years. And that has afforded me a ton of opportunity at the company. When I started at the business 19 years ago, we were a $200 million company. And right now our trailing 12-month revenue is $3.2 billion. So every job that I have had at this organization did not exist before I had it. So that's been a great opportunity to really kind of just go out in front and say, like, I see a need for this. And that often comes with, well, great, now that's your responsibility. So, and that's helped me grow in the company. As you mentioned in the beginning, this corporate development function didn't exist when I started here. We took some work we were doing and continued to add to it that really drove us into having this brand new department. So, for me personally, professionally, having the opportunity to just see a need, raise my hand, be heard, and then continue to build and grow on that. And, I'd say just not being afraid to raise your hand or take on additional, duties and responsibility, because I think a lot of us know that when we bring up an idea, it's usually, that's a great idea, why don't you go run with that? And so, feeling confident and able to have like the support of all of my mentors here to do those things and continue to grow and really learn about the business from, some of our leaders here. A lot of our leadership, I would say we're about 50% on our executive team, where 50% of the leadership has been here around the same tenure that I have been. So they've been through this tremendous growth and change. We went from being a founder-led company to a private equity-owned company to now a fully public company in the time that I've been here, which creates all sorts of change. And then the other 50% is, been here less than 5 years and brings very different perspective, different experience. And so being able to ask questions and kind of tap into both the history and then folks that are bringing in outside perspective and really kind of bridging those things together to continue to help grow personally and professionally. And then doing things like this are great. I love, being part of the community. I am part of the board for the YMCA for Waukesha County as well, which really helps, me get a different perspective and then bring that back into the company and help me grow as well.
That's great. Katie or Babatu, anything you would want to add from personal perspective?
I think Lisa said it really well. I think growth just gives more opportunities, and I grew within the HR function, but my job today is different than my job last year, right? And I think a big part of it is how do you continue to stay on top of the latest trends and evolve and make sure that you're being the leader that the business needs. And I think everyone in a high growth company we have so many opportunities. And I think a big part of it too is also knowing when you have too much and raising your hand and saying, I can't do all of this. We need to look at some other options. Because I think, as Lisa said, if you raise your hand and volunteer, say people are more than happy to give you all the work you want. But I think a big part of being a great leader is to also say, I need help. I can't do all of this. I think maybe somebody else should do this. Because I think as you grow, the opportunities are endless. And so you have to be able to self-manage too a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. So we're getting some questions sent in from our audience. So I'm going to pivot on some of those given the time that we have left. So I think I'll send this one out broadly. And if anybody wants to answer this first one, it'd be great. So a question coming in, thinking about all the work that you have personally led or been part of over your career within your organizations. Can you talk about a project that you worked on that really brings the most pride to you? That you really kind of stand up and think, wow, it was an impact, or there was something about it that stands out in your memory. Batu, do you have anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, everybody's chomping at the bit on this one. What do you think about that? I'm going to combine the last question and this one, right?
Sure.
So just really quickly, I think the personal learning. Whenever I take a new role, I'm looking for an opportunity to leverage my skills and experiences and make an impact, positive impact. And then the other side is I want to learn. And this has absolutely been that in spades. And I'll just highlight a couple of things that have happened. But I was in the organization for 6 weeks, onboarding in a new role that didn't exist before. And then we were remote working, right? So the ability to form those relationships, partnerships pretty quickly, was impactful, but ultimately, we added almost 20% to the organization size in my first year. Pretty proud of that. That's exciting. That's, making a footprint and making an impact. We also, reorganized a good 30% of the organization, and most of that reorganization led people to new, bigger, more impactful opportunities. It was not an exiting people process. It was just getting us aligned and scaled for growth. And I would say that, 80% of what I do fits in that bucket of aligning and scaling for growth, whether it's helping to implement new systems that help the organization and get us ready, bringing on new talent, building new programs. And then the last piece that I'll just kind of comment on is one of the ways we learn in the organization is we do a lot of project work through committees. And you're right, when people raise their hand, people are happy to take them up on it. One of our traditions is a big holiday party, and pre-COVID, it was always in person, the associate and their partner, nicely dressed, wonderful ballroom kind of a thing, really great stuff. And we did it remotely. We did it with a production crew. We did it and people were in their living rooms with their families, and we found ways to engage the entire family. And, so that's just something that you might view as kind of, oh, that was nice. But it really spoke to our culture, and it spoke to our people and our commitment to, again, continuing our traditions and really showing the value. Yes, we appreciate our associates. We understand, though, you're part of families, and we appreciate them too, because you're not going to be your best if they're not there to support you. So that'd be my quick answer. That wasn't one project, but it was a few highlights that I thought were worth mentioning. And then I would just say, to the gratitude comment that Lisa said about being with a company that's growing, I'm also grateful, and I'm grateful to actually have come into a really, really wonderful team across the business, but also within human resources. And a number of those folks are here today. So thanks for joining. But that's just something that I really appreciate. I didn't create, but I had the opportunity to be a part of, and it's really helped to fuel the success of the organization.
That's great. Katie, so sorry.
Nope.
We're running short on time, so I want to make sure we get a couple questions. So we'll probably fire them at you and see what we can get taken care of. But Katie, there are a couple questions coming in specifically around the move to downtown, and then how the company's culture will play a role in having two campuses that are co-located in the greater Milwaukee area. Can you share any insight on how that move might impact and how you guys are planning to work through it?
Yeah, it's a big deal. I'm not gonna lie, it's a really big deal, and we're really excited because I think the expansion of Milwaukee is really going to help us, especially with that talent attraction for. And when we looked at our population, we had a significant portion of our current population live downtown. So it was really the right decision for us. One of the things we're doing is we're keeping intact teams. So we're moving an entire business unit, which includes marketing and engineering. We're picking them up and we're going to move them downtown. And that way they can stay an intact team. They continue to work together every day. They have the ability, they aren't going to have to be on Zoom calls all day long. So it's really about how do we make sure that teams stay intact. And then the second thing is we're going to have to do that regardless, right? So we're opening a satellite office outside of the state where we have the Menominee Falls campus. That came up in the news probably a couple of years ago, but we keep buying more buildings because our expansion, we don't have enough room for the people we have today. So we have to keep culture alive. And one of the things that we are doing, one of the things we've been doing for years is our culture expectations are actually our performance expectations. So we have crystal clear alignment across the board that this is the behavior that makes you successful at Milwaukee Tool. So that culture is part of your day in and day out work. We talk about it all the time. They're kind of buzzwords within our organization. And it's really about how do we, and then the leadership really plays a very critical role in making sure that they are role models of culture and that they're keeping, culture at the forefront when they're working with their teams.
That's great. I'll open this up to all three of you because I think all three of you mentioned the recruitment and expanding your recruitment to bring people to Milwaukee or and looking outside, but also looking within our own region. As you started to do that or expanding and trying to bring people into this area, can you talk a little bit about what helped bring people to the region? What did you talk about? How did our region win in bringing some of the talent that you needed to the area? Or were there pain points people are also asking that perhaps we need to address and think about? So I'll open that up since all three of you talked about that for whomever might want to quickly address that one.
It's
my quick feedback there is it's getting easier to convince people to move to Wisconsin than it was before. And I'm confident that, again, COVID has something to do with that, because we're, a little more rural, southeastern Wisconsin. People are fleeing cities at the moment. So that's actually helping bring folks here, and then just getting them here. So I'm sure all of you saw like the big, blow up with the NBA and the commentators saying that they didn't want to come to Milwaukee. I think, that that happens a lot where people have never been here and they just have assumptions. So just getting people to say, why don't you just come for a visit? That really speaks a lot for the city too.
That's great. All right. I think we have time for one last question, and I'm going to have all three of you answer it very quickly as you think about your experiences and the rapid growth that you've personally been feeling with your industry and the industry itself. Any advice you would share with others who are on the phone today or in the web call that might be experiencing similar growth patterns, and how to navigate it? So Babatu, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest pieces that helps us to be successful in this environment and keep perspective in this environment is to be grateful you have growth problems and be aware of that. Continue to remind yourself of that. That would be the piece, because, you know, moving at such a rapid pace, you look all around you and you say, I can't find enough people. I have to find them faster. My processes are changing. The world is transforming around us, right? These things can be viewed in a way that is overwhelming, or it can be viewed in a way that is, you know, cautiously optimistic and maybe even exciting. And if you get to excitement, that's great. Put those people at the forefront and they'll you know, help to grow it. You know, that would be my biggest piece, is look for people also who are change agile in your own organization, and work on how you can become that yourself. If you're somebody that, you know, doesn't love change that much, and that's okay. People are on a continuum. Some people are very, very excited about it. Others are not. We get that. But if it's you, the person who's having a tough time, try to figure out some tools and mechanisms to become a little more flexible and feel like a participant in the change as opposed to it's happening to you. That would be my feedback.
That's great. Thank you for that. How about you, Katie? Any quick words of advice for the
I don't know if I could say it any better than Babatu there, but, you know, and I think part of it too is make sure that, you know, growth can be, you know, it's incredibly exciting, and it's a matter of, you know, you just staying up, like I had mentioned before, right? You have to stay current, you have to stay on trend, you have to understand what some of those challenges are, and partnering with the business, all parts of the business, and building those your internal network to be able to really quickly understand and build your business acumen to help the teams. I think it's critical for any part of the business you're in.
That's great. And Lisa, any
Good.
last?
Yeah, I would just add, you know, keep the strategy and the why in mind. Sometimes we're moving so fast because we're growing so fast. You have to still think, what's the long range plan here, so that you're making sure you're actually achieving that and not just checking boxes to get whatever's on your to-do list done today.
Great advice from all three of you, and a very fruitful conversation. Appreciate all of you doing that, and thank you for your time. And I'll hand it over to Jen for closing remarks.
Yeah, I could not have said it any better. Thank you so much, Babatu, Lisa, and Katie, for this really impactful content today. Congratulations on your company's growth and your continued success, and more importantly, you know, the impact that each of your organizations are having in our region. So thank you. Thank you, Penelope. Our trend of providing impactful and relevant program meetings continues. So with today's session, so thank you for that. And we have two upcoming sessions in September. So next month, we have our Tempo Talks on Friday, September 10th from noon until 1 on Brandy in Milwaukee. So a really incredible, exciting conversation there. And then our program meeting, as I alluded to or mentioned earlier in today's session, this is our in-person event on September 16th at the Italian Community Center from 11 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. If you are unable to meet us in person, we do have the live stream capability. So watch your Monday message for that. Thank you to all of our Tempo members, our emerging women leaders. Again, thank you to Reinhardt, our program sponsor, as well as our panelists today and our moderators. Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks so much.